That is right. And the closing of Gitmo is one of the big topics that we have discussed. Robert Gibbs is about to walk out into that room and give his daily briefing. We expect that that's going to come up as well. President Obama, of course, made it a priority when he took office, and he ordered the closing of the facility by next January. Since that announcement, the political opposition really coming from both sides of the aisle, with Republicans leading the charge. Their big concern was the lack of a clear plan for where the terror suspects, of course, would end up. Senator Durbin on the floor this morning addressing this issue of housing detainees in U.S. prisons. He took on Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who yesterday noted that no detainee has ever escaped from Gitmo. Democratically, let's take a look at that.
But it's also true that no prisoner has ever escaped from a federal super maximum security facility in the United States. In fact, the Bureau of Prisons is currently holding 347 convicted terrorists. Is Senator McConnell going to come to the floor and say that they should be moved from these federal correctional facilities?
Democratic leaders yesterday rejected President Obama's request for funding to close Gitmo, and they vowed to hold back any federal funding until the president comes up with a plan for those 240 detainees. Senate Majority Leader, listen to this, because this will give you the background for our discussion. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid said this yesterday.
The decision to close Guantanamo was a right one. I agree with President Bush. I agree with John McCain. I agree with Barack Obama. Guantanamo makes us less safe. However, this is neither the time nor the bill to deal with this. Democrats under no circumstances will move forward without a comprehensive, responsible plan from the president. We will never allow terrorists to be released into the United States.
All right, so he said we'll not move forward without a plan from the president. Take a look at this from Reid's spokesman, though, later in the day, who backpedaled a little bit on his boss's word. He said Reid, is not going to do anything until we get the plan from the president. The leader is leaving the door open. So that's the kind of back and forth we see as he went on to detainees being transferred to American prisons. Should the administration put forward that plan? And as we have told you a couple times already, the Senate voted to, just last hour, to block that transfer without the funds. So let's bring in our panel and get right to it. Pete Seat was a White House spokesperson under former President George W. Bush. Kirsten Powers is a columnist for the New York Post and a Fox News contributor. Kirsten, let me start with you. What do you make of the fact that the president's really facing a lot of Democratic opposition to this? Why is it that Democrats are standing apart from him on this so strongly?
You know, that's a great question, because I actually find it very troubling that you have people who are standing up saying we have to close Gitmo. It's, you know, the worst thing in the world. It's tarnishing the reputation of the United States. It's inspiring terrorism. Let's close it. And now they're saying that they basically never thought about the next step of what was supposed to happen, and, oh, well, Barack Obama just has to figure it out. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. How could you call for it to be closed and never think about where the people are going to go?
You know, there's a different way for them to go about this. I mean, they could have, you know, worked with the president, talked to him, but they're clearly, you know, as we all know how these things work, they're putting themselves in the press, they're getting sound bites on shows across all the networks.
Well, they're trying to curry favor with their constituents. They're clearly trying to curry favor with their constituents. And, you know, and I think it's ridiculous that we can handle these people. We can put them in a maximum security prison. It's a ridiculous thing, but I think they're playing politics.
Yeah, Pete, what do you think about that?
Well, obviously all politics is local. They're going to try and curry favor with their constituents. But I think the good news is with today's 90-6 vote is that this is the most bipartisan thing that has happened in the United States Congress, aside from them voting on a resolution to congratulate the Pittsburgh Steelers for winning the Super Bowl. So I think it's good news that we're working in a bipartisan fashion on this issue. And I think it illustrates the point that Democrats a lot of times have difficulty with national security issues. And they find themselves a lot of times in a no-win situation where now you have Obama on one side of the debate, Senate Democrats on the other side. No one can really agree on what's going on. We listened to Durbin a second ago about how no one's escaped from a maximum security prison. But then you have Senator Jim Webb saying, hey, if we don't have a plan, maybe we should just keep Gitmo open. We've spent millions, billions of dollars to put this facility in place. Maybe we should keep it open.
I would imagine, you know, as somebody who works in the Bush White House, you listen to this back and forth, and you know, does part of you want to go, hello? You know, that's what we were trying to tell you. This is an extremely difficult problem, right?
Absolutely. I mean, President Bush in 2005 first opened the door to his desire to close down Guantanamo Bay, but of course it didn't happen because we need a plan. And sending one detainee to France out of the 240 some that are there does not a plan make.
You're referring to the fact that Sarkozy said he would take one. So far, he's the only foreign leader who stood up and said that he would take somebody. But what about this issue, Kirsten? You just hit on it moments ago. And just a very quick thought from you, Pete, because I want to get that back to Kirsten. But Pete, do you think that it's misguided, this notion that we can't, adequately and safely house these people here?
I think it's obviously a perception issue where people don't want known terrorists to be in their backyards, and I can't blame them.
There's a bigger problem, though, Kirsten, and that is, what do you do in the court system here with the way that some of these people were interrogated? You may find yourself in a situation where you've got Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and he's in a U.S. prison, and you put him through a U.S. court system, and the case falls apart.
That's why you don't use enhanced interrogation.
But that's done. That's over. I mean, nobody wants to see these people set free.
Nobody does, but at the same time, it's the same reason that a police officer has to follow the rules, or sometimes a child molester gets set free. I mean, that's the way that it works, and unfortunately, that happens all the time. When the police break the rules that they're supposed to follow, very bad people get let out, and that's why this is so important. And I think a lot of times people think liberals are just upset about it because they love to coddle terrorists.
But do you think that liberals would put the same standard that you just mentioned to these people? Would they say, well, you know what, you blew it, so we got to set them free?
I would. I mean, I
would.
Yeah,
you'd be okay with that if they said, you know what, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was, underwent waterboarding, and therefore we're going to let him off the hook.
I would say you have to follow the rule of law. And whatever the law is, you have to follow the law, and you can't. And that's the reason it's so important.
But the law at the time, and I don't want to get too into the law at the time, that the people who carried that out under were told that it was lawful based on what was presented to them by their attorneys.
This is the debate. I mean, you can always find an attorney to tell you what you want to hear, and the Bush administration found attorneys to tell them what they wanted to hear. There are a lot of attorneys, most attorneys that I would look to say that it was clearly what the advice they were giving was not good advice.
All right, Kirsten Powers and Pete C. Pete, good to have you with us. Hope you come back soon. Kirsten, as always, a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you very much. Trace?